And joining me now, two special guests, Karthik Ganeshan, Fellow and Director, Strategic Partnerships at CEW, and Bhavreen Kandari, environmentalist, joins us. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want to come to you, Karthik, first. Let's look for solutions. Is there a solution that you see on the horizon? There are lots of thoughts being expressed by various sections of even within the environmental community, but do you see a real solution, tangible, workable solution?
You mean that can be implemented here
yes,
and now?
Yes, yes. Forget about the long term. Let's think about now.
Yeah, unfortunately, nothing short of, I think, locking down the city, Rajdeep, will probably, get us some sort of relief at this point in time. Even that may not be sufficient if meteorology sort of plays spoil sport, because there will be some essential emissions. And the reality is that right now, meteorology is controlling much of the problem. And we don't have any realistic way of replacing any energy source that we currently use today, which unfortunately will emit some form of pollutant, whether it's PM 2.5, SOx or NOx, and we will find hazardous air qualities in this at this time of the year.
So, are you saying that it's not necessarily linked to the farm fires in different parts of North India, stubble burning? It's more a meteorological phenomenon.
There certainly is a component of that. I mean, there is no denying that farm fires are adding to the problem that we are facing. But, we will be on this very show, Rajdeep, in another 30 days, and there will be no farm fire to speak about. Right? I'm sure there will be a Met event combined with the stuff that we're doing in Delhi to basically keep ourselves warm, somebody heating something, excessive traffic, and there will be exact days like this. And we know that the peak in many times of the year is actually in January or in late December. It is not necessarily in the November period. So what do we do then? Right? At that time, how are we explaining it? So I would say that, it's a combination of a lot of things that we're doing, and we need to tackle every source with a lot of targeted interventions. Farm fires also need to be tackled. So at this point in time, I think pointing fingers and blaming them doesn't help, because we know that we can't solve that problem either anytime soon.
Right? Because do you see an immediate solution, something that can mitigate it? Is it about mitigation at the moment, since we don't seem to have a clear long-term solution just yet? Bhavreen, can you hear me?
Yes, Rajdeep. Yes, I can. Yes, Rajdeep. So, like something I'm just going to, of course, add to Karthik, because nothing can be immediate, because you did not do. You have to look at the failures that have gone along the last year or years. This is the face of complete systemic failure in terms of whether it's planning, whether it's implementation, oversight, enforcement, governance, in every way.
No, but what would you do?
Citizens,
what could we do?
What I can say is that
what would you do if you were in the place of those in government?
Straight away, Rajdeep, we have, every department is short-staffed. All the pollution boards are short-staffed to almost 45 to 50%. There is even the people the officers who are there, they're complaining as of the police department, the fire department, the forest department. So all these departments, all these authorities have to work throughout the year. How will they work if they don't even have the minimum staff? In fact, this is a public health emergency. You need more people. You can't have volunteers come in. I mean, I can't seem to understand how the government thinks. You can't have volunteers. These are professionals. These are officers. They know they have to be on the ground. They have to prosecute. There is a huge number of violations being reported as of now in GRAP 4 and 3 on the 0 kilometer. There are emissions coming openly from the industry. There are construction violations. There's waste management, which is in a mess. Even now in the Delhi NCR, there's huge amount of waste being burnt, etc. Who's
so
checking
you're calling
that?
You're saying it's a governance.
Looking at that? The complaints are being
You're
made.
saying it's a governance. You're saying it's a governance crisis.
Of course,
but I take your point.
It is governance, and how will that happen?
But you have these patchwork solutions being offered, Karthik. The AAP government today speaks about artificial rain. It almost seems as if, earlier it was odd even, let's bring in odd even, that might solve the problem. Clearly there is, as Bhavreen just said, there is a governance issue at stake. But is there a way in which perhaps governments can improve the situation come next year?
Yeah, it'll have to. I think one thing is we'll have to take cognizance of the fact that the sources that contributed this year will very much exist next year. And we'll have to think in advance, how do we coordinate the different actions that are needed to actually get us to a situation where we are not in, let's say, severe next year at least, right? Maybe we limit it to very poor. I mean, obviously cutting it down to, moderate and all that is probably out of the question in the immediate term, right? Because some of these sources will take time to go away. And that starts with things like, for instance, you asked at the very start, what can I do right now? When I said lockdown, I'm talking about let's look at sources that are immediately available to us. I mean, we need to look at cutting down private transport that happens in the city by an order of magnitude or 2 orders of magnitude if we are to expect significant reduction in the pollution that it causes. Which means that, we're willing to put children who don't have a voice of their own, stay at home, and breathe the air that's at home. But we're not willing to sort of enforce that people who are working have to work from home. The work from home regulations that are there are optional. You can choose to have 50%. How many offices are actually doing 50%? How many are proactively doing 100% from home? So
are you saying make it mandatory? Are you saying virtually make it mandatory to create a work from home situation?
Work from home and minimize the mobility requirements within the city for everyone but essential services, right? Unless you do something of that order, right, the 20-25% that comes from transport will continue to come. And that itself is enough to basically keep you at levels of probably 120, 130 microgram per meter cube.
Bhavreen, do you go along with that? That it might be time for some kind of a lockdown situation every time this year? I mean, that also costs. There are people working in labor who suffer as a result, who have to stop construction work at this time of the year. Is there a solution there that you designate a certain period for where you create new rules for work from home as a mandatory requirement?
Yes, Rajdeep, work from home is, of course, these are things that can be suggested. They can be brought in, but they have to be pushed. You cannot ask people and think that they're going to give up their private vehicles. You make cities into one-ways. You have low emission zones. You charge congestion taxes. You charge emission taxes. This is the way you push people into. But then you have to give them an option of a robust public transport. We are still short of about 5,000 buses, and the buses even that exist are not in such a good shape. So those are, this is, right now if you see in the city, you can stand, in a minute you can count about 20 cars being driven by single drivers. These are things, if you see in the most world-class cities, they've already changed like 2 decades ago. Not to have any tax on emission and congestion in a city that is choking is absolutely, ridiculous, because nothing is being done on policy. In fact, the city works. The infrastructure in the city works only for the 8% people who are driving or own private vehicles. For the rest, there's nothing being done. In fact, all their spaces have been encroached into parking. Delhi's become a parking lot. If you see our homes and outside and markets and roads and everything. So
what both of you are essentially saying is that there's
come from the government. They don't have to lead.
I take your point. Both of you are saying there is no time for patchwork solutions. What you actually need is a comprehensive policy that's going to work both in the short and long term. It can't be that every year in November we wake up, including on TV channels, and suddenly say, look at the terrible quality of air. Can we make it part of a governance strategy for anyone who comes to power? Delhi goes to the polls a couple of months from now. Will air pollution be an issue that citizens would ever raise during an election? I appreciate, though, Karthik and Bhavreen for joining me here on the news today.